Okay. Yes, so hello again. I'm Laura Ridout, and I run Sisters Circle, which I think some of you may have heard about by now. And Yvonne?
Hi everyone, so I'm Yvonne from Astara Consulting. So I'm a leadership coach and trainer and also support small businesses or business owners.
Yo. Today we're just going to be having a little chat about the sort of something that's really close to mine and Yvonne's heart, really, isn't it? In terms of how people change, how people learn, and how people support each other in that environment, aren't we? So,
I think it's actually really important, isn't it? Because I think perhaps as we have found as business owners, sometimes it can be quite lonely, can't it? So, so actually that support element that you just touched on, I think is very key and important to a lot of us.
I mean, if we sort of, because the sort of method that we use, which is a kind of group method, you can call it peer-to-peer, or you can call it what you like, is the reason it's powerful. So, for example, and I think you'll experience the same thing, Yvonne, is I was coaching women individually, and I was doing that sort of business coaching type thing. And when I say business coaching, I don't mean I was kind of telling them how to set their business up. It was kind of like, I'm running this business, I've got this idea, but there's loads of things holding me back, and I don't quite know how to go forward. And every woman I saw, I was thinking, this woman could really do with talking with this woman. And actually, that woman could, this woman would so benefit if I joined them up. And then I suddenly thought, why don't we just get them all together and have a sisters circle?
Yeah.
And then it kind of moved a bit further then to think, actually, if you get them right from the start, where they've got the thread of an idea, or they might have a really good idea about what they want to do, but they don't quite know how to take it forward, what stage you're at, you can still bring them together, can't you?
Yeah, definitely. And I think sometimes people don't know what the problem is, do they? And I guess that's often the case with your clients in particular. They they might be at that idea stage and they need a bit more support to kind of turn that into something tangible. But yeah, so actually getting people together and bounce ideas off each other, or just support and be there for each other is really lovely. And I think one of the benefits I've seen, and probably you see as well, is that become invested in each other when you work together for a little while. So you don't feel like you're in it on your own. You feel like you've got a tribe behind you, don't you? All looking out for you and helping you along your way.
So important, isn't it, to feel that? Because it doesn't really matter whether you're working in an organisation or you're running your own business. Wherever you are, and if you're very high up in the organisation in particular, it can be a really lonely place.
Yeah.
You know, it's some leaders that are kind of having huge amounts of pressure put on them to make decisions and take the organisation forward, or their team forward, or whatever it is a huge amount of pressure and a lonely place, because they're kind of like, well, hang on, I'm the one that needs to kind of do this. But if you bring them together, it just sort of makes everyone, and everyone's on the same level. That's the key thing, isn't it? We're all, you know, there's nobody any better or further on or anything than each other. It's kind of, we're all on a level playing field.
Yeah, and I think it's important not to have those egos, isn't it? You've got to kind of come in and be willing to support each other as equal. And certainly, you know, I've worked with this kind of method with a variety of people and levels, and you know, whether it's people who are business owners and just need that support in terms of taking their business forward, but also in organisations with teams, but also with managers and leaders as well. So there might be different teams, but they are then supporting each other. And actually, what I like about when you do it then is that actually that helps break down that silo working in organisations as well. Because I think it's really easy in organisations to become so focused on your team, but then suddenly when you're meeting up with all the team leaders or whatever in the organisational managers, suddenly you realise what everyone does, and then you're much more likely to communicate better. So there are lots of benefits, really, I think.
And I think one of the key things that is important when you're running a group is that we're all everything that we think and do is based on assumptions all the time, and I think in a group that is kind of developing a relationship and trust, when they come together, they can start to gently challenge people's assumptions. And so, you know, someone might come and think they've got a particular problem and this is what I want to solve, or they might, you know, a particular challenge. And actually, after there's been a few questions flying around, I might think, oh, actually, maybe this isn't actually my problem or challenge, it's something else. And that's what's so fantastic about it, and what's so powerful about it, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think once you've created that trust within the group, they do challenge each other, as well as offer support and ideas. And I think that's where the power is when you're challenging someone to self-reflect and perhaps see something that was there that they didn't realise was there, and then they can take things forward in a completely new way. But it does rely on that trust, and I think that's pertinent to any group actually, but you can build that so quickly, because actually when people are talking, they're talking about their problems and fears and all the other things, so the trust has to be established quite quickly. But as soon as people start talking in that way, actually everyone else becomes much more invested and wanting to support. So it's a really interesting dynamic that you see evolving, and very, very quickly. I mean, I have people that meet once or twice, and then you can tell they become firm friends. So with your sister circle, you know, your ladies will meet, but after you finish the sessions, I'm guessing they'll still be meeting, they'll still be in contact with each other and supporting each other.
Absolutely, they won't kind of be this lonely, isolated person out there anymore. They'll actually have a group of like-minded women to
Absolutely. And that's what's great, isn't it? It becomes really sustainable, I think. So if I was going into an organisation and supporting a group of managers, you know, I might go and do 6 sessions with them, but afterwards they'll still have, because they formed that relationship, they will still either keep meeting or you know, just talking with each other in a way that perhaps they hadn't done previously. So it's that long-term benefit that you get from actually what's quite a short-term intervention.
And actually, another thing that I think is massively powerful about this is that, so for you often work with, say, practice managers or, you know, managers of some description, and for me, and others, I know you work with other people, and also for me, working with women. So I was having a conversation this morning with one of the women that's going to be joining the next sister circle, and she was saying, oh, you know, I feel like everybody's doing so well out there, and I feel like I might, you know, I'm really behind in sort of how I'm developing, and we talked then about what's kind of, you know, perceived by people out there, that everyone is successful, everyone's doing really well, and in your environment it'll be like, well, those managers don't struggle with the same things that I do, so I mustn't let them know that I'm actually finding this difficult. But actually, in a sister circle, it all comes out, and actually we're all finding a lot of things difficult, or some people might actually not be finding something, and they'll have a little sort of, you know, little drop of amazing information, or not advice, because we don't like advice.
I when I say advice,
stimulate.
Yeah, but I think there is that thing that one person's strength is another's weakness, isn't it? So actually, when you bring the group together, they might think that everyone's better than them at something else, but then they'll suddenly find themselves to be the expert in something that another person perceives as their weakness. So it does mean that they can all support and help each other. So yeah, and I think it builds then confidence, because I think we do sometimes look at others and say, oh, they're just so amazing at this, and just assume that they're amazing then at everything. But it's not like that at all. We all have things we're great at, and we also have things that perhaps worry us or we struggle with a little bit more. So it's acting as a, I don't know, you've got the power of the team there, haven't you?
Yeah. And I think we've talked already, haven't we, about fear and how fear and confidence are kind of related in a way, and how that holds us back. But we could all be in a different stage of that learning, because everyone is fearful of something. And once you've overcome that, there's another thing around the corner. If you want to keep growing, I mean, obviously if you just stay put and stay where you are and you're comfortable with that, then that's fine. But actually, if you want to push the barriers and you want to kind of, get real clarity on where you want to go, and you've got to kind of then it's going to be a bit frightening. And actually being with a group of people who are all kind of got a sense of that gives you a bit of courage, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely. You spur each other on, and also because you're meeting regularly, I think you don't want to be the person that goes away full of ideas from one meeting and coming back to the next one saying you haven't done anything. So
exactly.
So there adds a bit of accountability as well, isn't there? Because everyone comes to you and you come back and everyone's like, so what have you done? How did it go? So you've then got to do it, haven't you? So it does then promote, obviously, solution finding, but then it also promotes action and reflection on how that went. So I think even if the person wasn't the most ambitious person when they came into the group, just by being part of that group, it's going to spur them on to take action and reflect. And that is what creates that ongoing development, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think for me, again, like you've just hit the nail on the head in terms of that sort of accountability and action, is that it's not just a case of, it's not like a self-help group where you sit around and you sort of go, oh, tell me about that. It's not like that at all. It's very action focused. So each individual, every time they come, they will have a set of actions which they have come up with themselves through the coaching conversation. They go away with their actions, and we need to hear back when they come back how they've got on with those. And like you say, if they've done nothing, it's like, oh my God, I better crack on with this. So there is that, you every single time you meet, you're pushing that little bit further ahead with where you want to be.
Yeah, so it completely accelerates that kind of action and learning, doesn't it? So I think, they go away, and because if you are meeting fairly regularly, you're going to be moving forward much more rapidly than if you're working on your own. But then also the great thing is that you'll come in with your kind of set of issues and you'll work through those, which is great. But because you're actively participating in everyone else's topics as well, you're also learning from them. So it's not, so you're learning from, maybe if there's 6 people in the group, you'll 6 lots of topics each time, which is amazing, because you then go away after your 6 sessions with a whole lot of new learning, whole different perception about how to take things forward. And then when you come across those issues yourself later on, you go, actually, if this happened to so-and-so, I kind of know how to take that forward, or I got some really great snippets of ideas there. It might not be right for them in terms of the specific action. They might have to adapt that a little bit, but that learning will still have been there.
No, and I think, again, that is the sort of magic and the power of bringing together. So, I mean, they all sort of, if you get a whole lot of different minds, great minds together, it kind of amplifies it, doesn't it? And one-to-one coaching is really good, and it's really important. And I think that, and I do, offer that in parallel.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that if you come in and you're with your coach and you've got an individual, there's only so far you can go, really. And you can ask the questions, but actually, if you've got several people asking the question, and it can take you in a completely an unexpected direction.
It can, yeah.
You might be thinking, right, oh, this is what I want, and this is where I'm going, and then, oh, actually, no, maybe it isn't.
Yeah, and I think, as you said, that's less likely to happen with one-to-one coaching, isn't it? Because actually you usually come in working through a set of issues, and that's great, and one-to-one coaching absolutely has its place, and some people just aren't ready or in the right place to have group coaching, in which case one-to-one is absolutely the right thing. But there are some unexpected benefits of group coaching. So suddenly you start to see collaborations forming between people. Maybe they find that there's a project that they need to work on together, and actually that kind of takes that forward much more readily. And also, as we touched on, that ability to challenge each other and friendships and everything else. So there's I love doing both. I love one-to-one coaching, but I probably get a different sense of pride from group support sessions.
And you know, Yvonne, the other thing is that individuals who take part with group coaching is that they also learn to listen. And listen, you know, so often people just want to get in there with their answer or their suggestion or their advice or their opinion. And in a facilitated group, they can't do that. They have to think, how can I turn this into a question so that I'm telling this person? Because we don't like being told what to do we? We need to work it up. And that, so people leave as well, learning how to ask questions. They become better listeners. They become almost kind of learning how to coach a little bit themselves. So that, you know, in terms of their relationships with their family or even and their work partners or anywhere, it's a really valuable learning in itself, isn't it?
Definitely. And actually that's one of the first things I probably take the clients through, actually, is that listening. And I think so there's a really good author called Nancy Klein. I don't know if you've heard of her. Time with Things habit. But she says something like the quality of our thinking is determined by the quality of the attention that we have for each other, or something along those lines. And it's so true, because actually if we are properly listening to somebody, it allows them to think in a completely different way, allows them to kind of use all of their sort of brain space to think, whereas if we're prompting somebody, we force them down a certain line of thinking, and therefore we don't really go beyond probably the obvious, whereas when we give somebody a lot of time, it's amazing, you know, what ideas suddenly are sparked just by having that time. But then obviously the bit that goes with that is the open questions, as you said. You know, if we can ask good questions, that also supports people to come up with really great solutions. Whereas, you know, at the beginning, as you said, people's inclination is to go, oh, that happened to me, I did this. And you
like, no.
you have to hold the back and say, no, hang on a minute. We need to be asking questions. We need to be, so they do go away with new skill set of us, that listening, asking questions, facilitation, that they can then use with their teams and their families.
I don't know if you've ever experienced, I mean, you will have done. So when you get a group of, if you're running a sort of a group like this with a group of professionals that do a similar thing, as a facilitator, that can be really challenging, because especially with clinicians, because clinicians, they know, make decisions, you know, and suddenly you've got to kind of peel that back a bit and say, there are alternatives to the route we're going. Let's explore them a little bit. So I think for clinicians or directors and that kind of higher level decision making sort of level of in the organisation or whatever it is, they could benefit enormously from this kind of thing, because and that kind of showing your vulnerability, you know, that's something that when you're high up in an organisation or you're a clinician, you can't really show that, because you are the person that knows. But actually, you don't always have to be, and there could be a different solution. And so that's where the trust and the building of relationships comes. So you can say, actually, I don't really know. I'm really quite stuck with this.
Yeah.
And the questions start to unstick people.
They do.
Kind of get them moving forward.
But it's great also to teach managers, leaders, that they don't have to be the solution finders all the time. So where they might be used to just giving prompt answers, to actually to sit back and start using those questioning models instead. So it's really powerful, like you said, with your clinicians who know everything and know all the answers. Actually, when you take that different approach, it can produce different results, and also it gives confidence that sometimes when I meet with managers, they're a little bit overwhelmed because they may have taken on a new subject area that they don't know enough about, or members of staff who know more than them, and they feel that they've got to increase their knowledge. And it's not about that, actually. It's about understanding the right kinds of questions to ensure that the person, because it will give you, if you ask the right kind of questions, the person tells you what they plan to do, or what they think the solutions are. That's in itself enough to give you the assurance that the right things are being done. You don't have to research the topic yourself to understand that.
Yeah, we're not sort of all qualified doctors, are we?
No, absolutely. So, and I found that actually when I was a manager, I suddenly found myself responsible. One of my teams was responsible for information. I know nothing about IT really. I know a little bit in theory, but I would have no idea in practice. So it really ensured that I had to put those coaching skills into practice to kind of ask those right questions, and then get the assurance back that they've given the things the right thought and that they've come up with the right solutions. And then I could say, yeah, absolutely happy with that. Go ahead, Whereas
what you're saying, sorry, Yvonne, what you're saying there is that actually we always think, and I think as organisations, as people that, leaders, we always assume that the solution is somewhere around something that's a process, but it's not. It's actually about people. Everything starts with people, how they explain things, how they express themselves, all of that. And actually, if you've got a problem in an organisation that seems like it's a process or something structured, it's probably the nub of it is through having that kind of open conversation and bringing out a sort of, those sort of solutions, and or something that you just had no idea that actually it was to do with probably a person that was doing something or saying something, and that's what sort of, it just opens up a whole realm of solutions that you've never thought of. And I think that's the power.
And actually, when you find the clients come up with the solutions themselves, there's a real sense of pride there in them, isn't there? That they realise that actually it was in them all the time. They may not have even recognised that it was there. So it's really empowering, isn't it? And
it's wonderful.
It's great, I think. And and then when they come back the following month and they go, it worked.
Yeah. Or it's like,
it went well, and
it was really scary. I wasn't quite expecting that. It's like, yeah, well, there you go, out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
So
yeah, I think it's great, isn't it?
I think we're basically advocates here of group coaching. So if anyone is interested in joining a sister circle or joining Yvonne's mastermind business coaching, or all of the stuff that Yvonne does, then do get in touch. You've got our contact details, and we look forward to hearing from you. So thank you for listening.